All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Macro Perspective. And today we got a good one for you. We have Margaux Alvarez here with us. And before we get into some details with her, if you guys could please like, comment, subscribe, and share this with somebody. This episode is going to be a great one. We already know based on the caliber of athlete Margaux is and all the other things she does as an entrepreneur and businesswoman. And we're just super excited that we were able to finally make this happen. It took a few months and so Margaux, actually, I'll let you introduce yourself to the audience. Give the people a little background.
Yeah.
And I don't think I can do it justice.
Her reputation precedes her a little bit, so I want her to kind of create a story there for us.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, I'm Margaux Alvarez. I am a winemaker, a fitness coach, an athlete. I've competed at the games 7 years in a row. Also had the opportunity to be on the NBC Titan Games. I've been able to be selected for American Ninja Warrior twice. So I have a lot of fitness experience under my belt. I've been a fitness coach over the past 14 years. And I've evolved over the years, kind of moved into the tactile space as well. So I've competed in that tactile games arena, and also looking to do more with that. I am also going on my first hunt this winter. So a variety of things on my belt, but there's obviously more to achieve. But I'm trying to make sure I don't ramble too much. But that's kind of myself in a nutcase. I'm originally from Montana, but reside in Las Vegas right now.
You're the complete performance package. You're I remember seeing you in the CrossFit Games, watching all the YouTubes, and kind of when I was younger. I didn't even know the rest of your career, going tactical, going to the Titans. That's kind of intense. Obviously, you're a winemaker as well. You started off with that, so there's that entrepreneurial journey. I think that we all kind of share here. But could I ask, I know obviously you've had the CrossFit tenure. What made you want to get into the other performance aspect? Was it because of the competition, or was it because it was a new space and you're all right, I want to try this out because it's new, I can prove myself here? Or what was it? Just curiosity? What was that?
Yeah, I think it probably a little bit of combination, a little bit of blend of both. I've always been very curious. I've always been interested in other activities and sports growing up. I did anything from Taekwondo to horseback riding to ballet, to golf. And so I think I wanted to try a little bit of everything ever since I was young. And so as I kind of wrapped up my chapter within the CrossFit competition, I knew that I still wanted to push and challenge myself and try something different. Having the opportunity to be selected for the Ninja Warrior, I was like, well, that's not an opportunity that's presented or even gets open to other people. So why not take this opportunity? Because it's not guaranteed next month, next year, et cetera. So I was able to do that in 2019 and then also recently in 2023. And then having the opportunity also to go into the Titan Games, I was like, all right, again, same thing. I'm not going to make sure I have this guarantee. So I just wanted to take that chance and make the most of it. So I think that curiosity piece for sure is a base of it. And then just kind of pushing and challenging myself and say, all right, what else can I do? What else am I capable of?
And where does wine fit in all that?
So my message is work hard, wine down. But the winemaking in terms of that actually started as home production wine, being able to kind of do it at home and, kind of experiment and play with it. For me, I love the process personally. I love being in the farm in the vines, pulling those 300-pound wheelbarrows down the vines. And as much as that's a challenge in the physical labor, I love the obviously the end product is great. I love a bottle of wine, a couple glasses of wine with friends. But at the same time, it's you put all that effort and energy into one aspect. So then you reap the rewards at the end. And I saw a lot of parallels between winemaking and fitness. You think of your journey to snatching 100 pounds or trying to do a muscle up. It takes a lot of repetition, a lot of time. You have to have patience. You don't have to, but you should have patience and perseverance. And so I saw a lot of that in my fitness, but also it mirrored a lot of the winemaking. And so I think that's what it was passionate for me, at least what I wanted to get into. Plus, I felt if I can showcase what I love and hopefully help inspire others, then, more power to it. I didn't know about all the legalities and the issues and how hard the wine industry is, or just alcohol industry is, period. So I learned that kind of as I was doing it. Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, that's actually had a conversation today with UNR, so University of Nevada, Reno, about doing one of our nutrition seminars for our nonprofit, but through the university. And there's, then he's like, well, you might have to have certain not necessarily the credentials, but insurance just to be able to deliver the message. And I was just like, oh, great. And here's like another step of like just adding like an extra layer of, protection, or just another little loophole that, or not loophole,
Yeah.
but little like hurdle to like get through, all to like really just like distill information down for students, which again, not the end of the world, but that was kind of part of the conversation. I was like, great. Just when you think you know something, now there's three additional things we got to go work on.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's tough because the legalities of a lot of things out there make it difficult. Like if I had a soda pop or soda can industry where I'm selling, soda to people, it would be way different. There wouldn't be as many legalities. And I imagine nutrition, if you're not a registered dietitian, there's a lot of kind of legalities or loopholes behind that. And I know
Yep.
as a fitness and, nutrition individual that has obviously helped myself, but also helped other people. I can give recommendations or guidance, say, hey, this is what's worked for me, but I can't say this is what you should do because I'm not an RD, I think they call them a registered dietitian.
Yeah. And I mean, technically I'm not a nutritionist and nor a Seamus, but we're nutrition coaches based off of
Mm-hmm.
certifications we have. And, just like with CrossFit, you're like I'm a CFL2, right? And I think
Mm-hmm.
you're L4, correct?
L3.
Or
So yeah, I achieved my
L3.
L3. Yeah.
Okay. So like, right, like the descriptor matters, right? Like in how you put it out there. And then yeah, like that's part of our Seamus and I's journey right now, is actually going through becoming board certified through the board, the national, NBHWC, so National Board of was it Health and Wellness, right?
Yeah, health and wellness coaching. Yeah.
Yeah, health and wellness coaching. So we're health and wellness coaches, which is like nutrition adjacent. But like even then, it's
Yeah.
like when you go and like preach about health and wellness, like you can have like the information about like the food, but it's like we're not a registered dietitian. This isn't medical advice. Like it's just, even though like I guess a lot of times we don't have to worry about it because we also work for doctors. So like I was
Yeah.
Yeah.
always worried about prescribing a meal plan, but the doctor I worked for was like, I'll sign off on a meal plan, just fucking write it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, like the only thing I think we can't do is like my lady, she's a clinical dietitian, registered dietitian. She does like medical nutrition therapy, and she'll give me like a lab, and I'll know what the lab says. Oh, they got some kidney issues or something like that. Because I understand labs, like Marcos definitely understands labs. We
Yeah.
all do, but I can't be like, this is the protocol. Like she can, she can say it with
Yeah.
confidence. She knows the exact formulas. And it's like, the problem is, this is the stuff that, not the problem, but like the reality is like, I don't have that level of education. I don't have that level of liability and insurance, kind of like what Marcos
Mm-hmm.
is talking about. And she's like, you got to get the formula down correct. Cause she's been in hospice care. She's been in emergency care. And it's like, if she gets it wrong, literally that's someone's life.
Yeah.
So we can't play those games. So it definitely makes sense to have those hurdles. I'm curious, what was probably, obviously, your pedigree for most of your life, it sounded like martial arts, horseback riding, training, CrossFit Games, Ninja Games. What was the biggest hurdle that you saw from like that transition to being like an entrepreneur in the wine space? Like, what was the biggest hurdle that you saw that you're like, okay, this might make or break me as an individual, an entrepreneur?
I would say capital, resources, money, not only to get the business started, but also how do you keep the business going? Because we talked about it kind of before we started. It's not like all of a sudden, you have this product and now you sell all of it all at once so you can recap what you invested in it. It's like, all right, you do this large batch, you do this large production, you have bottles, corks, capsules, you have these initial cost startup fees for the LLC or getting everything licensed. Now you're kind of in this deficit, and so now you got to, all right, I need to sell product, or okay, my product isn't moving as fast, how else can I bring in revenue? So I think the biggest thing, just as an entrepreneur and as a small business woman, or just small business owner in general, it's like that revenue and capital is something you're constantly kind of working for. It's a struggle of, all right, cool, do I invest more in marketing and advertising because there's all these other brands of wines out there, or do I, kind of hold that? Do I save that for other costs that I might need for the website, for other costs that I might be in terms of transportation to get the wine into other states for distribution? Oh, if I want to get it into another state, I need to pay another state fee and then another label fee. So there's always additional fees and kind of like costs that add up. And it's like, all right, so to be able to continue to stay afloat, like capital and resources are a lot. So I took out, a lot of my sponsorship, if not every penny of my sponsorship from multiple different companies to launch that. My husband also took out his pension to be able to kind of contribute so we could do all this. So it's like there's a lot of fees that go into it people don't really see. And of course, once you're starting up or once you're kind of up and running, you have the cost of shipping, which for alcohol is very hard and heavy because it's this product is heavy, like a case is 40 pounds. That's not cheap. So it's all these additional fees that continue and roll over. But it's like if I tell someone like, hey, shipping to Florida is $100, they're most likely to be like, let me reevaluate if I want to make this purchase. Again, being a small business owner is difficult because there's a lot of other things that you can't decrease because maybe a larger company can do that because they have other ways to bring other revenue. So that was a kind of a long answer to a question, but that capital and resources.
That's a great answer. I want to follow up. Maybe Marcos can follow up after this, but Marcos, I think me and both and I are thinking this, or even the audience would be thinking this, like, all right, you got this fee, you got this labeling fee, you got this other state. Oh, something happened with the shipping. Now you got to do this. Oh, you got this law in this state. How did you buckle down? Because Marcos and I were dealing with just a few things, and I was like, oh, this is super hard. And they're not anything. They're social media related. I'm like, oh, this is so hard. But you're coming up with fire after fire after fire, Margaux. How did you stay ahead of that, compose, or how did you just get it done?
I mean, perseverance. I know it sounds kind of like, oh, duh, just do it. But in my mind, I mean, we would talk about strategy. We would talk about kind of reverse engineering of what our end goal was and what we needed to get there. A lot of this came from my fitness training and competition. All right, what was the end goal? Qualify for the CrossFit Games in 2013, even 2012. So then we worked backwards from that. So a lot of that training mentality of what we needed to do, not necessarily in the gym, obviously it's different, but all that kind of planning and back engineering we applied to the business. So our end goal is all right, if we need to launch at the CrossFit Games in 2017, which is what I did and what we wanted, how far back can we apply? How much time do I need to apply the license? And granted, if we started at the beginning of 2017, we didn't have to pay this, $10,000 initial fee to get our license. So we waited to early 2017 and then go from there. So to kind of mitigate it as we go along, it's all right, can I anticipate, all right, if I know my renewal fee is going to be $100 or $50 and then another additional fee on top of that, I can kind of plan for that. But again, there's a lot of things that I didn't know going into it. So I was stumbling upon a lot of things, getting the licensing, getting the rules and regulations for shipping. So I learned as I went and then tried to make adjustments as needed. As I've gone along, I've figured out, all right, cool, where can I cut costs? What can I mitigate in terms of, do I want to put more money into marketing, or do I want to hold off and say, hey, all right, I need to do more events here, or let's do a travel event where instead of I'm paying shipping costs for the summer and extra fees for ice and extra fees for return deliveries, we can travel and do a 2 or 3 week wine tour, which we've done in the past. Yeah. So that was kind of trying to be dynamic and trying to think outside the box to do something different. Because you think of traditionally, if you have a wine company or a wine brand, you have a shop, you sell out of that shop. But we didn't have that. So we thought about, all right, let's do this differently. How are we going to approach this? Instead of having people come to me, since I didn't have a physical tasting spot, I can come to them. Yes, I might have to cost a little bit extra on hotels or driving or travel costs in terms of gas, but then I'm bringing the product to them. I'm introducing them. They get to see it. Because one of the biggest barriers is, obviously I'm a smaller company, smaller brand. So people don't know about me. How are they going to buy my wine? Why are they going to buy my wine compared to someone, the wine they've already tried? But then how do I introduce a new person to my wine, but then how do I introduce them to kind of continue to come back year after year or month after month, depending how much they drink.
Why should people buy your wine? That's you asked that question, what makes you guys different? Out of curiosity.
For me, my biggest thing to kind of communicate to people was saying, it's not because people are oh, is your wine healthy? Does your wine have no sugar? My message is that you work hard, you wind down, you deserve it. You don't have to feel like you have to drink wine with less sugar or have to drink this, sulfate-free wine, which there are sulfates in wine. You just can't really avoid that unless they change the way they make wine. For me, it was just I'm not saying anything special about wine. I'm saying more about the community and how you approach the aspect of it. So a lot of people feel oh, I can't drink, I work out, I want to reach my fitness goals. And that's great, but I do too. And I'm going to continue to do so by drinking my wine. Yes, I'm not drinking a full bottle. It's, a couple glasses, but it's also about preaching about balance and moderation. And so that was my whole approach. It's you work hard, you wind down. You put time into the gym, career, school, family. At the end of the day, you enjoy a glass of wine. If you don't drink, then maybe it's bonbons on the couch. But my whole approach was a look at the approach, or look at how you perceive it differently versus, oh, alcohol's bad, wine's bad. I mean, again, moderation. That was kind of my whole approach versus saying, hey, my wine has no sugar. Most red wine doesn't have a lot of sugar. It turns into alcohol during the fermentation process.
Yeah.
I was, and again too, I think you kind of said it there, like kind of going into like the CrossFit community and people that like obviously maybe already have your reputation associated with it, and you're trying to like kind of endorse more of like the lifestyle balance component after
For sure.
after being like at the highest level athlete and continuing to be at the highest level, right? Like, so if you have a way of being able to go perform at that level still, but have like that moderation in there, people would look to that as like, again, how can I achieve that lifestyle balance? Which I think we're all kind of searching for, or they think that like a fitness journey is you start this and you literally eliminate everything that was like fun, right? Like, I mean, a lot of people don't like quote working out to the level that we all do, and we understand that. But like, if you have some sort of deeper appreciation for like the things that you are fueling your body with, and like quote the 20% are things that again make life worth living, like I think that's huge. And I think the community centered approach, like obviously I've seen the what was it, the vinyasa and wine, like things that you guys did,
the yoga
a few
wine
different
nights,
times events in Vegas. Yeah, the yoga wine nights, and then a couple of the other events that I'm like thinking it back, like now, like where we're at in our current state of our development in business and understanding of like what we want to do, like it's kind of the same thing we have to do, just kind of get our foot in the door, try to knock it down and knock people out with like really trying to lean into the community that may or may not already exist, or make it or expand upon it and bring them into other like-minded individuals, which I think is, again, what we all have to do as like smaller companies. Because yeah, you can go to Smith's and get a bottle of wine for $5, but like, is it help support somebody else that's like literally trying to do something they're super passionate about that can, make a difference with like a product, or again, I mean, have interaction with people that are, probably answering the calls, right? Like to me, I like working with people like that personally. And I think a lot of people in our community do like that too. Cause shoot, I remember when Noble wasn't Noble. Like I remember like getting like offered to like buy their prototypes at a regional event. And I was like, I like the idea of these shoes, but like they don't look as good as like, I think it was the Nano 4s at the time. I was like, I really like these black and gum ones, and y'all don't have it. Y'all have like one model right now. And then sure as shit, here we are. It's the Noble CrossFit Games like 10 years later. So
yeah, dude. Noble. I remember back in college, they were just getting around for me. And I was like, yeah, the same thing, Marcus. I was like, I already have like the Nanos. And then I kind of started liking the Metcons because they were slick. But then there was like the Nike versus Reebok, like whole fiasco. They're like, hey, beat us at the games. And then like they're like, we did. And then I was like, oh, and it just seemed like shoes. There was like a shoe warfare in 2018, 2019 with the shoes or something like that. Do you remember that?
Josh Bridges was wearing the prototypes at regionals, and everybody was like, what shoes is he wearing? And it was at like the SoCal regional. I was like, I have no idea, but they look awesome. And it was like this all black prototype that they like have like in a showcase somewhere now. Cause yeah, like Nike's been very smart about any market they're going to approach. And at the games that year, because that was the year, I think it was the first year of the pig, like the old school model pig.
Oh my God,
and,
yeah. That was 2013 when it first came out, with it being open, and then 2015 it came back where it was enclosed.
Yeah, so I think it was that year. Maybe it was the year in between that, but like Nike literally showed up and they're like, don't ban our shoes, beat our shoes. And they like had like trailers like
They
locked
had it
like
outside.
on the outside.
I remember that.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant. And then they literally dropped the banned colorway, which is the same one that was like paying homage to Michael Jordan. So I mean, like that took a lot of people being like, this people, CrossFitters love shoes, like apparently, and so we can capitalize on another sneakerhead market like really quickly. And I mean,
CrossFitters love looking fresh too. I remember like Reebok always coming out with like someone's shirt, shorts. It's like you got the baggy CrossFit shorts, and then like just
they got tighter as the years have gone on.
And then I feel like you go to a CrossFit class and it's like the girls look great, the guys look great, and it's just like, what is this, like a fashion show? Like it's not even a fitness class no more. It's like a fashion show.
I will say this though, Seamus, and Margaret can probably attest to this. Like, it really depends on the geographical location. Because like the Vegas market, it was all about like, are you wearing like the branded stuff? But then I went to California and people were literally like, they're in their Chucks or they're in like Nike Freeze, and they didn't give a shit. They were just like out there to work out, and it's like I was like super thrown off. But like again, like it's just different markets and different things going on. And I remember just getting smoked in this one like running workout with like what I perceived as like a soccer mom. Like she just came in with her three kids at the stroller, put them in the corner, whooped all of our asses in a wad and left. And I was like, what the hell just happened?
I will say that I think it's also kind of not generational, because I don't know if you can really use that term in terms of CrossFit. We haven't really been in terms of CrossFit, in terms of how long it's been around. But you look at kind of the old school grassroots CrossFit, you know, you're wearing maybe some Brooks, maybe Innovates. I think Innovates came out in like 2010 or 11. I know I got my first pair in 2011, but it's like, you know, you don't need to have the fanciest gear to do work. Like you just got to put work in, you got to do the effort, you got to have some intention. It's not all about, all right, I need the best shoes, the best shorts, the best knee sleeves, all that stuff. Yes, a lot of that stuff can help, but I think you back then when it first started, you know, people were meeting back in a park, in the like working out in the grass with maybe some kettlebells, dumbbells, you know, burpees, running around the park. So I think what it started with and where it's evolved obviously definitely changes. And again, I think it also depends, yes, where you go, not only state, but also city. Are you in an area that maybe has a little more affluent area where they're maybe able to afford more things or afford more shoes, versus someone's like, all right, hey, you know, the gym's maybe been here for a couple years or a handful of years, 10 years, whatever. It's in a different area. So obviously I think there's a variety of things that go into it. And it's funny because when I first started, I was like, I got one pair of shoes, I'm good. People are like, oh my God, you need like 4 different pairs of colors. I'm like, minimalist. I don't need tons of different colors. Am I grateful for additional shoes and obviously having variety of options now? 100%. Yes. Like, can I, you know, help donate or give to others that maybe don't have it and are in need? 100% too. I'll do that. But it's interesting to see the shift and the change as it's gone along. And I remember like back in the day when I started, it was either Asics or Brooks. They were my running shoes because I was training for a half marathon.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll just wear these for rope climbs. Obviously bad choice, but you know, you live and you learn.
I'll be real though. I'll be real with you. A fresh haircut, some new nanos, and a fresh like outfit. You're gonna PR for sure. You're gonna PR.
Perception. My days were all I had was I was in college when I started at the University of Nevada, Reno. I mean, I was running 400s in Vans, like, and like I have videos of it. And then I got my first pair of Nano 2s, and I was
Those are
like
the
jazzed
best.
about it. Yeah,
Those were the
and
best. They're built like a tank, dude, and they had the best rope climbing ability.
I love the ones more than the 2s, like visually. And I like couldn't get my hands on the ones at the time because they weren't like selling them again. And then they brought them back later on, and I was like, it just doesn't feel the same. Like I'm
Yeah.
like, it just doesn't like feel as good as like getting your like the OG generation for whatever reason. And then I just ended up donating them to, I think, CrossFit Courtney. Like I'm just like, I'm not even wearing these. I have like all these pairs, and I was sad. I was sad that I wasn't like part of like the original like crew. Like I feel like with CrossFit, I was always like a couple years too late. Whether it was like the shoe game or whether it was like building the capacity that everybody did with like before the weights started getting like outrageously heavy, and now they're even more outrageous, you know. And you look at like people that have been in the sport like yourself for so long, Margaux, and I'm like, damn, like if I would have just built that foundation and like it just found it like probably 3 years earlier, like I feel like it would have been a whole different game. And then nope, you know, I do miss those days of like training like that and trying to be motivated to get a spot at regionals. And I never thought I could be at a games caliber, because not gonna lie, when you came in and did some workouts at max effort, I was just like, oh, like what? Like that's your session? It was just insane. And even though like I think perspectively, like you didn't think of it as much, and I was like, we're training like, I mean, probably an equal amount of volume, but like the way your sessions were like broken down and how you like outlined the like the direction of the sessions, and probably spending a lot of time reverse engineering what you need to get good at. And I think that was like 2016, 2017. I was like kind of blown away. I was like, oh, no wonder why. Like each session is like, this is the intent, this is the stimulus. And I mean, obviously you had great coaches to like help relay that at the time, and what kept bringing you back over and over again.
Yeah, I think it was, and obviously it took time to get there. Like, I mean, I would start with, you know, an hour a day, then eventually 2, then I worked up to 3 to 4. And my coach was just very adamant of like looking at what I need to get better at, and then what do we need to do, or how can we like break it down. So for example, like my strict handstand push-ups are like my kryptonite. They still are, but they are such a, yeah, they're such a struggle. But it was like, all right, I would do those almost every single day because I mean, as you know, as the years went on, they were at, regionals, and then they became deficit at regionals. And then it's like, all right, now we're going to do off parallettes. It's like they're, and Dave did a great job of pushing, Dave Castro did a great job of pushing us as athletes. And people are like, oh my God, these workouts are crazy. But it's like, we rose that occasion. And the perfect example is in 2013, when you released that legless rope climb workout at the games, and, barely anyone could do it. There was a handful of athletes we could get some ropes in or some reps in, but then we're tapped out. But then come 2014, here it is at regionals, and it gives me goosebumps talking about it. 'Cause it's like we had to do 10 rope climbs, obviously not back to back, but it was the run in between. But it's like we had to either, match up, like we needed to rise to that occasion, or, we got passed by other athletes that were putting in the more work. So it was trying to be strategic in terms of, what is my goal? Okay, I made my goal. Now I need to go back. But you also have these other athletes coming along that are out of the woodwork or have been doing it a little longer. So how do you continue to stay ahead of them? So it was a lot of time training. And I think, at the peak, it was, 6 to 8 hours a day, not all at once, but that was my job. That was my focus, like compete, obviously not all at once, again, like whether I do 3 and 3 or 4 and 4, or if I do all one long session of 6. The biggest thing was, all right, if I'm going to beat those other competitors and be on that podium to qualify for the games, I need to make sure that I'm as well-rounded as possible, but also having something in my back pocket where if I do have a lower score, if they do have handstand push-ups, I can capitalize on a deadlift or double unders or a run or whatever it is. But it's interesting to see where it's at now in terms of the sport. But of course, you have these young athletes coming in. Well, if they've been doing CrossFit for 10, 12 years, they started when they were, 7, 8. It's mind blowing.
Yep.
But like you said, Marcos, you wish you would have started a couple of years earlier. In my mind, it's like, oh man, I wish I would have done gymnastics when I was little, or if I would have competed in gymnastics, because that would have given me an advantage of all those that did. And it's just interesting to see these young teenagers coming in. What I'm interested to see is, as the years go on, not so much the physical capacity, but what's the mental capacity? What is the mental aspect of these athletes that are younger? And if they've only been around this environment, how are they going to continue? And one example, again, I don't know Mal O'Brien. I've never personally interacted with her, but to see her be at a high level one year and then step away this past year, for me, I'm just curious, because I know the mental training and the mental aspect, and even Rich Froning has touched base on it. There is so many components you have to look at, and you look at like the kind of 10 components of the CrossFit, the mindset should be one of those components as well. It's not, but it should be, because there's a lot that people don't talk about. And if you don't train your mind, just like you train your body, this will affect this. So it's understanding, if you aren't doing anything for this, and if you're at a young time in your, like when you come into the sport, how is that going to happen, years, months down the road? Just something to think about.
Yeah.
That's a good
point.
Got me thinking, Mario, you got me thinking about that too. Like, did the pressure, the fact that Tia wasn't there this year for all these younger athletes, then culminate to more stress? Because if they don't win, then it's a failure year. Like, is that maybe a reason why we did have a lot of the athletes pull out in the female side? Because I think it was more than just Mal. Like, I mean, I feel like there was like 2 or 3 that were a little bit younger, early 20s, and like stepping away for unannounced reasons, which again, it seemed like they didn't post about an injury. They weren't really posting about anything like that. And obviously, like, that generation, speaking about generation, is a little bit more active in the social sense about, they're not even clout chasing, but it's like, they want people to kind of know like the body of work that they're doing. It's just kind of part of the times. But I wrestled with that too. I was like, oh yeah, did you hear that so-and-so is not like pulled out and it's not doing, the regionals this year or whatever, semifinals, right?
Sectionals,
and I'm like,
I can't remember.
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not surprised, because I wonder if it is this pressure, like this like thing of like, this is literally like, this is my year. Like, I'm like, literally, like, I finished second last year. Like, I should be on top because Tia is no longer there, my number one competitor. Like, do you think that had something to do with that pressure? Or do you think that maybe it is like all these years of like, again, maybe not spending a lot of time in the headspace game, or maybe they needed to mature a little bit more? Like, what is your theory?
Yeah, I mean, again, I can't speak to obviously everyone else, but from my experience, I feel like there is definitely some sort of mindset / mental component, and it could be based off of expectations, whether that's expectations that the individual places on themselves, or it's expectations that others are maybe not directly, but they feel indirectly, oh, like I'm having these expectations placed on me because I should do this because of, A, B, C is not here, or whoever that is. So again, I think I saw
Mm-hmm.
like Mal's posts after the games or after semifinals or whatever, the sanctionals, sorry, I can't remember the specific term they use, semifinals, excuse me. And again, it seemed, again, outside perspective, looking in, don't know her, she's younger, but from my perspective in terms of training and competition and expectations and everything else that's being placed, it seemed that she was highlighting this life or this time outside the gym, enjoying, I think it was a bonfire or marshmallows, s'mores. I don't know. I can't remember specifically, but just that glimpse. And again, social media, I will say it's very two-dimensional. It's like it's social media, but we're interacting with this screen, with this online community. And as much as it's this interaction and as much as people are like, oh, it's not really what's going on. Yes, that's true. But at the same time, people are sharing a component of their life. So, whether I'm looking into it, whether people look into it too much, again, can't say this or that, but perspective, it's like, it seemed that she was enjoying some time outside the gym. It seemed like she was enjoying an experience outside the gym where she wasn't training, that wasn't around competition, and, good for her. And I will say that it can be very difficult if you're training for this one specific goal and you're in the gym and it's in your life and you're reviewing video, you're working your nutrition, you're constantly trying to push the envelope in terms of what you currently are capable of, but also what you're trying to achieve. It can get mundane at times, and it can get repetitive, and it can get bleak in terms of feeling like you're not making progress. And especially at a younger age, when, yes, if you are on your phone a lot and you're looking at this game of comparison of, oh, this person's doing this, or this person's faster, or this person's, achieving bigger weights, you're constantly comparing. So you feel like you're never good enough. That will eat at you. That mind kind of game of looking at other people and comparing, I think that definitely can have an impact. And again, I'm older. I'm 38 now, and I started, I think, found CrossFit when I was turned 26. So been 12 years ish now. But I think the ability to be an older athlete and have that perspective and be able to separate yourself and make that distinction can be a benefit. So for these younger athletes coming in, if they don't have someone that's talking to them about the mindset or getting them to understand, hey, celebrate the successes, embrace the struggles, but also know, nothing's guaranteed. At the same time, don't place too much emphasis on one thing, because if that's gone, then what else are you? And I wonder, I know I'm kind of talking a lot, but I wonder, you know, if she felt that she was just this, just a CrossFit athlete, just a competitor within this realm, is that something that's weighing on her, whether it's Mal or anyone else? Again, this, guy or girl, doesn't matter, whoever,
Yeah.
team or individual, but
Yeah.
does that
Yeah.
feel like it's sucking your identity out? I don't know, maybe, but if
Yeah.
it is, it could be a big contributing factor.
Marcos, I definitely identify with that, like that whole mindset of trying to keep up with the Joneses, quote unquote, and other athletes. And like when I was wrestling, like I do jiu-jitsu now and kind of just casual in like my fitness game, but like when I was wrestling, like wrestling was all I had. And I was still going to school, getting good grades, still doing those things, having a life. But like there were moments where like wrestling was everything, right, collegiately, and you would watch like YouTube videos and you're like, oh, I want to do this, and like it just takes over your whole identity. And the problem with that, it's so easy to burn out. It's so easy to burn out when literally the only thing on your mind is the sport that you have. It's cool to have an obsession. It's cool to like love the thing that you want to do. But if you don't have recovery from it, like we talk about it as fitness people, if you don't have recovery from the thing you love, it doesn't really matter. You're still going to burn out, or you might get hurt, or you might just not have that same passion for it when you need to. There is that unhealthy obsession with athletics. You need to have that. Just like honestly, like you do need to have that sometimes at the highest level. Like it's not necessarily the image of health that most people think it is. It's a lot harder. It is like you were saying, like you're training almost 6 hours a day. On an average person's normal day, I don't think that's like, what you want to recommend. And also like in terms of the eating for that, and then obviously the sleep. But I mean, let's just take that, for example. You probably had to get your mind off of that somehow, like decompress some way, like get some wine in you, watch some TV, like hang out with family. I think you need to have more well-roundedness. I tell this to Marcos all the time. I'm like, I'm obsessed about fitness, but I have to put a bookmark on it, or I'm obsessed about like a topic, but I have to put a bookmark on it, because if I keep going, no one really cares about a person that's one-dimensional. Like if fitness was the only thing you had, and you didn't have your family, and you didn't have like your business, or you didn't have like a profession, anyone can do that. Like, or if it's like all business, no family. But really, where's like the fulfillment out of that, right? Like, yes, we'd love for you to perform at your highest, for sure. Sometimes something's got to go, right, Marcos? You got to sacrifice just a little for a certain season. I think we had this conversation with our classmates a few weeks ago. Like, you got to sacrifice some things maybe for a season, but if it's forever, and if you feel like burning out, maybe might have been the case with some of these ladies, or again, that pressure that kind of Marcos was talking about. But I think dimensionally, as a human being, you need to have all facets of health and wellness, or just all facets of life, to really feel like a complete human being and not feel like you're burning out. You gotta progress in other areas, right? You gotta creep up along the way. Feel like progress over perfection.
Well, and so I have to, with that, I feel like there's kind of two ways to approach it, or two ways to look at it, right? Like that 80/20 rule in terms of like, hey, nutrition, or hey, whatever it might be. I think that yes, that's balanced, but at the same time, you do have to make sacrifices to achieve something great, right? So, like for
Mm-hmm.
myself to come from, no necessarily no gymnastics background, or no specific sport at a collegiate level, to go from that
Mm-hmm.
to be able to qualify for the game 6 years in a row as an individual and then one as a team, I had to sacrifice. I had to say no to a lot of things, but that was the goal that I
Yeah.
wanted. Like I wanted that so bad. I left my marketing job. I said no to a high paying job with benefits, and I let go of all of that to say, I'm going to go be a coach at a gym so that I could hopefully have
Mm.
time to train and achieve
Mm-hmm.
getting to the games. So I said no to a lot of things to say yes to one thing. And people for sure were like, you're crazy. Oh, you're never going to get there. Oh, yeah, we believe in you. But actually, we really don't, because we don't think you're actually going to achieve that. So I had to make sacrifices. And over the years, to continue to go back, I had to change how I kind of live life in a way, because I really wanted that goal. And when I continue to achieve it, repeat it over and over, I was happy because that was what I wanted. Again, fast forward to the end. It's like, all right, I achieved my goal. I loved it. It's great. Now I'm like, I know I'm not going to compete anymore. How do I want to shift? And so the
Yeah.
sacrifices that I gave up, I started to shift and say, all right, well, now I'm going to start my business. And now I'm going to move into being a small business owner and hopefully inspiring others to find out what it is. So I do agree in some aspects that having balance is important, because that's my motto in terms of my business and life and what I embody, work hard, wind down. And that's how I disconnect at the end of the day. Having a glass or a couple glasses with people or by myself is how I can kind of disconnect, so that I'm able to reflect and say, all right, cool. Because I've had personal experiences where, tomorrow's not guaranteed. Next year's not guaranteed. I'm not, guaranteed to, come back sometimes if I go on trips, whatever, because of the nature
Yeah.
of life. And I think that's where I've really embodied, hey, like make the most of every single day. Don't count your blessings, or count your blessings. Don't take things for granted. Excuse me. Again,
Yeah.
on the other aspect is like, if you want to achieve something great, you literally have to put a lot of, not, if not ever all the bubbles or marbles or whatever you want to call it, balls in
Yeah.
that bucket to achieve it. So, and again, I think
Yeah.
I'm that small percentage, and I'm fine with that. If people that are like, "Hey, I don't have the time," that's totally fine. You do you pick out what you want and you go
Oh
for
yeah.
that. Find that balance and moderation, however it is, because we all are living our own life. I think we should share our experiences because we can all learn from one another. You've lived a different path than I, and I've lived a different path than
Mm-hmm.
him. And it's like, no matter what, that's for me. I love meeting people and hearing people and telling their story and hopefully sharing mine with them, because we can all learn from one another. And it's like,
Yeah.
as we get older, we can't get time back, unfortunately. So it's like, I only have
Yeah.
so much time to learn from people, but that's an opportunity that maybe I could, live through someone else's experiences,
Yeah.
and hopefully, gain that perspective.
I
I
think
think
I
that's
think Marco
so
says it
true.
well. It's seasons. It's seasons. Like, you're only gonna get like a certain amount of seasons. Like, you did CrossFit like 7 times, like the game 7 times, Titan Games, Ninja Warrior Games. Like, that season, you have to run with it as much as you can. Like, I had to run with my tenure, going from middle school, high school to college, and then now I might not have a season of jiu-jitsu just because I'm figuring out some other things. And it's like, but I had to run that season to the ground. And like, you sometimes, as a person, like most people will not have, I don't think, I think we share something here, like us three, that like most people will not have the chance to explore a season of their life in the thing that they're so passionate about and run it to the ground until like, like until they're literally pulled out of it. Like, hey, I think you're good, like until life says so. Not many people have that, but if you have that opportunity, I definitely agree. Like run it as hard as you can and run it until the wheels fall off,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think my season got cut short. My tenure with what I was so passionate about with CrossFit and not ever getting to like the next level like of like my own personal goal because I decided to have a family at a relatively young age. I mean, I was 24 when we got pregnant with my son, which I mean, many would argue you're about to really get into the prime of your life and you don't know what you don't know. So like I had that identity stripped away from me. It's also where I gained a lot of weight and I dealt with this proverbial issue of gaining like the baby weight with my wife, right? And but it then helps me reflect across like the people we hope to speak to these days, which is like the athlete 2.0 identity, which I mean, Margaux, you have, even though you didn't have the collegiate level of it, but you're now kind of in the athlete 2.0 realm because there's now where you're in a more balancing act of like, hey, like fitness is still a key component of my life. Hell, you're obviously still getting invites to the Rogue Invitational, so you're still at that level, right? Like, which again, like anybody that says they wouldn't want to accept that would be lying their ass off because it's like probably one of the dopest experiences, right? Um,
Nah.
um, and it's like now you're like, oh shit, now I got to go prepare even more for that thing yet again, right? Because
Yeah.
like
I'll make sure I
you're
hold
like,
my own. Don't crap my boat.
I gotta
um,
show up.
but like you also talked about the curation of this new identity in this like business going and also that lifestyle balance and like showing people they can obtain that. And again, when I say seasons of life, it's like I tell people like I got quarters now. Every quarter is something new. Every quarter, like I'm like, oh, I finally understand why businesses break it down in quarterly earning reports and all the shit that happens because my life is like starting to mirror that with my kids. And I'm like, oh, okay, like what's the new quarter? What's the new thing that's happening this quarter with my kids? Is it their attitude? Is it something they're not doing well? Is it this, and this? And like, so like I still have like, core identities of like, I want to keep the athlete like alive in me. I want to have those own personal goals. And I think a lot of people can really get lost or when they feel like something like that gets stripped away or that maybe they weren't experiencing those other things. It's kind of like you're saying, like these young people are like, man, I don't know if I'm missing out. Right. Like I can actually relate this back to one of my first relationships. It's like, am I missing out? Is this person the one? Like, I'm in high school at the time. Like I've been with the same girl for 2 years and I like got that, like, you're like, oh, you'll never like last with that person. Yeah. Lo and behold, I was on and off of that girl for like 8 years of my life, from the time I was 14 to 22, like basically right before I like got together with my wife, like we were doing this in and out game. It was like, okay, like, yeah, like I thought I was missing more. All it led to like was more understanding and wisdom that everybody's going to have to go experience it themselves, right? Like you can,
Yeah.
like as a coach, you can portray some wisdom, you can give them insight, but yet again, like you're the metaphorical guide. You're just shining light on like, hey, there's a bunch of different stones as I've seen it. Take with the information what you will. You definitely need somebody in your corner, and overcoming those little mental adversity hurdles again are things that again, like things that I felt like I was missing are things that I'm trying to go put out into the universe now. I don't think I'll be a mindset expert with like elite level CrossFit athletes. Like there's probably no way, shape, or form. But again, it's like you can maybe build some perspective and help them understand, hey, like this is the goal. This is your season of life. Like you only really get that one opportunity. If you don't seize that moment, you're probably going to have a little bit of regret. Like what hurts more, the pain of regret or the pain of failure, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I would rather fail. I like when
Yeah.
something fails, it means I didn't do something well enough and I can either make improvements or I can reflect back and be like, I gave it my all. Like I failed and like that's as much as I can give these days, it's a litmus test. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I
I
still do the
agree.
local
And I
competitions for fun.
I love it. I think I read something recently in terms of it's not necessarily a failure, it's a learning experience. And I will say that, our mindset's like failure is guaranteed. Like people talk about, lightness and darkness, like love and hate, like the kind of opposites. And it's obviously like the sun rises, the sun sets, all that stuff. But failure, it's an experience. Like I would rather try something. If I don't make it, then at least like give it everything I got. So then I'm not later like, oh, I wish I would have done this, or I didn't even try. And I think in terms of, like you said, your perspective and I've heard the seasons reference one more recently, not too long ago. And I do really resonate with that because I think that's important. And I will say too, Marcos, with like your experience, like, yes, maybe, you didn't get to the end goal of what you were at, but your experience of what you've achieved or what you've been through, a lot more people are going to resonate with that. Cause maybe a lot of people didn't get to their own personal experience. Maybe they did have a family early. Maybe they, quit their dream job, or maybe they finally got their dream job, whatever it might be. Maybe they broke up or they got into a relationship. But I think that a lot of what you probably have experienced in your time frame of life, people are going to resonate with that more because they're like, oh, I've been to that too. And maybe it's not every component, but maybe one piece or that, or one other piece that maybe they connect with. And it's interesting because I've talked to a lot of people, and I think they want to connect, they want to resonate, they want to feel like they're having this connection. And social media on the positive can be a great way to reach a lot of people, not just like the platforms, podcasting, videos, all the other ways to reach people. I think those can have a positive impact. Obviously, there's a negative side as well. But I think that the perspective, but the ability to also resonate with people, that's how you build trust. That's how you build this connection on this online forum, this online platform, and people can kind of get to know one another or their stories. And it's like we all have our own story. We've all had things that didn't go well, things that did go well. And one thing that in terms of decision, like you make this decision, you're like, is this the right decision? Like, should I be with this person? Should I not be with this person? Should I take this job? Should I not take this job? Like, there's so many, and I believe me, I've been there too, where it's like, am I making the right decision? I'm like, oh, and I look back and I'm like, oof, I'm glad I made that decision. Then there's other times I'm like, damn, I wish I would have made the other decision, but it is what it is. And that's life. And it's like, at least I can learn from it, and hopefully and tell people like, hey, take a moment to really think about what it is, write your pros, write your cons, see if there's a way to blend them together. And if it is, awesome. If not, then, make a decision. And I think sometimes we as humans will mull over stuff because we spend so much more time with our head and in our head than talking to other people. So it's like we go back and forth. I think it's just can be this kind of roller coaster sometimes in our head.
I'm going to be honest with you. You hit that nail on the head so perfectly because, okay, so Marcos and I said this specifically to our producer and our team. I said, we are not doing any offer with our podcast until 52 episodes in. And what's so funny? It's so funny is as soon as we hit 52, we had a call with who we call like the godfather of this podcast, who's kind of like a consultant for us and kind of just like someone that helps us out. And I really aspire to him. And I know Marcos, you looks up to him as well as like a father and as like a businessman. It's so funny that the first 52 episodes of this podcast, I think we were just kind of finding our voice. We're just messing around. But post 52, post conversation, now that we're creating everything that we're doing now, I see clearer exactly what we need to do. And it's not even like a thing that like, oh, we're just kind of dabbling. I'm like, we need to do this. It's like there's no like if, and, or buts. Like I'm like, the world absolutely needs this to the extent that we can reach the world, whether it's in the Vegas community, Los Angeles, and whoever is listening online. I just know it. And I just can't, I can't do it the other way. I can't go back. I'm like, nah, I can't, we're just getting started, we're just getting started. I tell that to Marcos and I'm like, yeah, dude, we got to do more. We got to get after it. Cause it's like the world or the people that we're affecting, the community, the people that resonate and the reach that we have. It's just getting started,
Those small, honestly, it's where it leads to those learning experiences. And we knew we're going to be taking a lot of these moments into growth. That's what we decided on really early on is like, is this even viable? Can we even make this work? Can we even get to 52 before we create an offer or do something or build a community or whatever that is? Like we had even we didn't even have an inkling at the time. We just knew that we had to focus on talking to people, hearing more perspective, hence the name of the our podcast, and then move it from there. And it's funny you mentioned that, Seamus, because I spoke with Zach yesterday and Margaux, Zach Forrest. And he was like, you guys have been working on this content and all this material for like going on a year, and you haven't I've never heard you guys talk about selling something. And we're like, yeah, that's intentional. Like the point is we weren't ready to sell something. You know,
We
you don't
weren't.
have to
It
go.
took us a minute. It took us a minute. You know, it took us a minute to get the right people. The athlete 2.0. As people have been hearing the rumblings, Margot's kind of hearing about it right now. But like that balancing act of being a previous athlete to now, um, developing yourself. Yeah, it's been a mulling over process, right, Marcos?
Yeah, and
I
looks like we're
can't hear
having
you
some
guys. Sorry,
technical
something happened to the
difficulties with.
audio.
Yeah, just a little recap there, just a little technical difficulties. You know how it is, internet world, so you're cool with it. Is we're talking about reach, resonation, and kind of just like connection in the social media sphere. And, Margot's kind of talking about that social media and how we've talked about, Marcos and I finding our niche, finding our space in the macro perspective and in the world of the internet, the local communities that we're in. But I wanted to finalize this kind of conversation. I want to be respectful of Margot's time here. Margaux, I want to go back to what you said earlier, mindset, kind of this thing about mindset. Now that you've hit a great stride in your career with CrossFit, the performance aspects, you're a freaking entrepreneur and everything else. I know you talked about, hey, kind of reverse engineering a few things. But there's really one thing I want to ask you here is like, how do you keep your mindset, especially in like CrossFit, where like there's a lot of unknown variables, and in the business world, there's a lot of unknown variables. What would you give to someone as kind of like, hey, this is how you need to approach a mindset with unknown variables and kind of just like life, because you know it more than most. You know it more than most. Your tenure in the games, your tenure in your business. Yeah, what would you say to the audience for that?
It's a absolutely great question. I think the biggest thing is looking at kind of your big perspective. And I know your guys' whole theme is the macro perspective. And I think looking at it as a long term. So people talk about, oh, what's your 10-year, 5-year goal? And I've never necessarily put like a time frame like, oh, in 10 years, I want X, or in 5 years, I want Y. I think for me, it's like I look at that overall big goal and then I say, all right, how can I chop that up into smaller goals? How can I make maybe like small segments? And again, if you think about a year's time, you could do, seasonal, you could do quarter, you could do monthly. And I think for myself, I'll take those small chunks. It's like, all right, how from my big goal, how do I break that down into smaller goals? And then do I give myself a rough time frame of I want to achieve that? And I haven't put like hard finishes on things, a little more soft because the ebb and flow. Because again, the unknown, you don't know what's going to happen. And within the fitness of or within the realm of fitness, I had parameters of how I wanted to achieve that. So I was able to go, 6 weeks or 2 months or 3 months, etc. And within business, I gave myself kind of bigger chunks of time because of that unknown. Like, hey, the license could take 4 to 6 months. So within that time frame, I can work on my label design. I can work on getting paper and the bottles and everything else I need. And in terms of my consulting, media, and now fitness businesses, with all of that, I look at, all right, cool, like what is the end goal of what I'm trying to achieve within this year or this month? And then from there, I break it down. I can even break it down into like daily goals. Like, all right, today I need to film 3 videos. I need to spend, 4 hours responding to emails, messages. I try to break it into time frame. And I tell people, especially, I know it sounds weird, like a lot, but it is a lot. But I tell people like, if you are struggling with time management and you're struggling with like these smaller time frames, you either break it into segments of time, like 2 hours, 4 hours, or you segment it out to like a time frame. Hey, from 10 to 12, I'm going to do X. And then from, 1 to 3, I'm going to do Y. And so for those that are out there listening or struggling, I think the biggest thing is looking at that big picture, but then also breaking it down to small pictures. Because if you look at the big picture and you're like, holy shit, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm never going to get there. One, and you tell yourself that, that's for sure not going to help you because now you start to believe that. But also, it seems a lot more unachievable. So breaking it down into smaller goals and smaller segments and figuring out, all right, what do I need to do? And then having some sort of plan or mantra. For me, it's been, the same mantra ever since I kind of started competing to now. And that kind of revolves around 5 components. That first one is being accountable to your goal. Write down your goal. Second, preparing, executing. What are you going to do to prepare? How are you going to execute it? And what plan of action are you creating? 3, review your work. What do you do to review your work? Like nutrition, you look at your food. Hey, did I eat enough food today? For your fitness, did I go to the gym? For your business, hey, did I email the leads I needed to email today? Did I follow up with X people? And then, of course, being patient. Nobody wants to be patient, but You have to, because it's part of the process. And the last component is being accountable, or sorry, is enjoying the process, enjoying the journey. So it's like, if you don't like what you're doing, go back to being accountable to your goal and reevaluate. And obviously this was all designed kind of in my fitness and the competition and CrossFit, but that has had a good transferability to my business and multiple businesses that I've done. So I think for anyone out there, those are, I think, the biggest things I can recommend. Hopefully look at the big picture, look at the small picture, create segments of time from there, and having some sort of mantra or flow that you're going to rely on, because that will help you, especially in the parts where you're like, damn, this door will not open and the other door won't open. Do I keep trying to open these damn doors? And I will say, like, if I take one word with myself, it's that perseverance and the ability to kind of keep going. And it's hard. There will be days where you're like, F this, don't want to do it anymore. But you wake up and you get after it again.
Marcos, I feel like, how do I say that? How do I say this? Every time we have a guest on, it's just so serendipitous. Serendipitous.
That's usually your word, by the way.
Serendipity is my word. Yeah.
Margaux, it's funny because you hit all these key movers of like things that we've identified to help people in more of their daily perspective versus that macro perspective. Because, and ironically, that's going to be the title of our, like, we'll call it a journal, but it's more of just like an action planner, right? To optimize your own personal growth, because we realized that, like, we wanted to give like gifts to people as they come on with us, and or clients as they join us, and or seminar attendees, whatever. And we're like, okay, we could do a 5-minute journal, we could do this, we could do that. And then we had a conversation with somebody else. He's like, no, you can make your own. It's like, all right, cool, like we could create a format. So like we actually fleshed it out and have all of it like pending right now to like actually be able to deliver your daily perspective, like journal that hits literally like what you just said. We have our 5 pillars: family, faith, focus, finance, and food. All right. It's not faith. Food, fitness, family, focus, and finance. There we go. Nice. Not faith, because faith, you can't get into schools with faith. Sorry. I misquoted myself there. Then we have the core 4, your 4 intentions to get like the main movers to get shit done in that day. 3 things about like self-gratitude, 2 things of people you want to connect with on that day, because that's super important for community building, or 1 mantra for that particular day, reflecting or auditing that day. What did you enjoy? Who did you connect with? What did you do for your own development? Who did you help develop? And lastly, the thing that every self-development journal misses in our eyes is a brain dump. What's this like thing on your head right now that like you're going to bed with all these thoughts and ideas? Just write them down. So we literally put a spot for that because we couldn't find a journal that had that particular component. And so many times people are like, yeah, we'll get
I want to get it in your hands. We're going to get you one, Margaux.
Once we have it like done.
That's super nice of you guys. And I will say that the aspect of journaling, definitely that's something I would add in there in terms of whatever goal. And so I love that you guys are incorporating that, because the actual component of writing things down, one that personally is helpful for myself, but I think so many people, we don't write anywhere. Like I have so many of these notepads everywhere. I have probably 20 of them from all my training and now into my business and notes and calls and podcasts and all this stuff. So that you guys are doing that, that's amazing. And I highly recommend people journal, because getting your thoughts out on paper can be so helpful. And I've had some people that I've worked with. I have a free Get Your Health Back group on Facebook just for like fitness and community. And one of the girls I connected with a couple of years ago, she's like, I don't even know what to journal. I don't know what to write. I'm like, whatever it is, you could, if you like writing poems, if you want to write about how work was, you want to write about how you hate the grass, whatever it is, get it out on paper. And like, the more you do it, the more comfortable you feel. So I love that you guys are doing that. That's really awesome.
Yeah. And it is clunky and awkward at first. Like I'm definitely not a journaler by nature, but when I'm like, am writing stuff down more religiously, or like my key tasks when I was in office with my other job, like I would get those things done. So it's like, it's like, how do you, again, like we know it's so hard to embody everybody in 2 pages. So it's like, okay, this is version, this is version 1. We'll make tweaks and edits. We just want to try to create something and get feedback and see if this can help people move it. And it's like, again, how does it help you with like your workspace, your mental state, your own self-development, and also just like declutter the brain at the end of the day. And again, like I believe like what you said, like every time, and people will reflect on this, I ask this question so much, when you were like, buzzing on all cylinders, right? When you were just like churning and burning, getting stuff done, did you write a lot of stuff down? And I think back to it, it's like I was actually actively like going and journaling, or like get, actually putting pen to paper. And it is like so impactful because it's like, I think what it is that like, because of the digital age that we live in, we think putting in our phone like is going to want us to like go back to it. But I find that it's not. Like all these other apps or AI generated things, like it's not as like impactful as pen to paper. Just like you said, it's like something about that. I learned that when I was teaching math to kids, they were doing everything with their finger on an iPad, all their math. And then they would freeze up on the test because they got a pencil in their hand. So I literally started being like, hey, like printing this paper out, you're writing this down on this piece of paper.
That's
And then
interesting.
their test scores improved. And also, whenever you're reading on a digital medium, your retention rate is reduced by 50%. So why are you going to put stuff down where it's going to be like 50% less productive for the individual, like right from the jump? So, there's more studies on that. And I experienced it firsthand. And my kids that I dealt with when I was teaching had learning disabilities. So why am I going to add like an extra layer of impacting
disability?
Yeah.
No, that's so good. No, I just love it. No, Margaux, for sure. Like I love the insight you gave, and that's why we wanted to give a journal, because we realize like what the macro perspective is, and it's I'm telling this to Marcos like recently, just as like as I've been journaling more, I'm like, we're actually really unique. We come from the world of health, fitness, and stuff like that. That's kind of like our world. But I think we're not going to be on those same stages as the guys. I come from the strength and conditioning world, the NSCA, and people like getting so anal about like, no, this squat is better than this squat. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, do we really like care about what squat biomechanically is what better? And like people are like,
people just need to squat, period. I don't think many people are squatting, so
yeah, it gets to the point where it's like, no, it's knees over toes, no, it's ass. And I'm like, dude, I really don't care. I even got my degree and all this stuff, and I'm just like, I could care less, because it's like at the end of the day, Marcos and I care about like, what are those prime movers to get you from your goal, like you were saying, like that goal and that macro perspective. But then in the meantime, this big goal's happening, you need like little goals to like win along the way, distill it down. So I want to just be respectful of your time. Margaux, where can everyone find you? If there's any event, seminars, or anything like that you want to showcase, just let them know, and we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah, I'm pretty much on all platforms. So on Instagram and Twitter, I'm 321GO, GAUX. And then on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. What else is there? I'm spacing. YouTube. I have just Margaux Alvarez, my name. I've done a lot, kind of all platforms. I'm all out of wine, unfortunately. So I don't have any in stock right now, but I will in the future. But my new website is just margauxalvarez.com. I'm kind of working through some things to kind of readjust and relaunch all of that. So for those that want to support, you can follow me on all platforms. I have a new series on TikTok that I'm putting out for fitness, just 28 days, no equipment required, just trying to get people to move. Like I said earlier, people need to squat. I think there are individuals like us that are so inundated in the fitness realm that we get so kind of used to it. And I try to pull myself back and say, hey, people that aren't into fitness or trying to get started, where should we start? So I've just kind of created this little 28-day program where it's bodyweight movements. I provide all the coaching, and hopefully they can utilize that to get started. And that's on TikTok. So I'll be sharing more on social as I get more wine and get my website going. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, you guys heard it. I think this episode was a great one in terms of just performance and life and seasonalities and mindset, really, from the macro to the micro. Shameless plug there. If you guys are listening, we've got a few things out now. We got the journal, we got some offers, so make sure to check that out as well. We'll have all the show notes for Margaux, guys, so make sure to give her a follow, message her, or check out her stuff if you need any of it. And once the wine is back in stock, I'm definitely gonna have some, and we'll be able to enjoy that. All right, guys, make sure to share this one and subscribe. Thanks so much.